It's a pretty broad variety of things happening. You know, probably two or three different ways that we start to see these things change. So I went a little bit off the rail on this one. Ended up not being so right on that day, but we had that particular day we had already gone up to 7 million in penalties, and as I found out later, we have these things called expired stakes, and once a stake is past its due date, you get 2 weeks to start doing something with it. To either unstake it or GA it. Otherwise, it starts accruing a 1% penalty. So there's a nice staker out there that had, I don't know, 67 million or so HEX that had been staked. And anyways, it was burning. And so it had already accumulated 7 million in penalties. So somebody went and good accounted it, and that's where those penalties came from. And if you, I don't know if you have HEX daily stats up, or if you can pull that up, but if we've been watching the daily payouts, they've been creeping up here, and so I don't know if someone's trying to just keep the system cleaned up, or whether they're trying to just make sure that their stakes that they plan to end get the most yield. I don't know, but we see the payout with very little penalties today is 66253. But the last few days been pretty high, and our 180-day average is up over 6.3. And so very bullish.
Gotcha. Bullish. So, what events? I guess what has led to this happening? Has it been people emergency in staking? What has made the big payouts happen recently?
Yeah, sure. Well, they're pretty much coming from two different things, two different angles, and compounded by the share count. So the share count's been dropping, right? And we have these conversations a lot, and we watch it, and I think it's 10.25, and for last night, somewhere around there. So that's 10.2 million T-shares, down from 10.3 recently. And so as those drop, the base daily payout goes up, right? So what's going on? T-shares go up in price in terms of HEX. Over time, there's a deflationary effect in that people can't get the same number of T-shares for the same amount of HEX. We have these stakes that had gotten their T-shares relatively cheap coming out. And what we're seeing is a deficit. They're not getting as many, even if they did restake everything, they're not getting as many T-shares. And so the T-share count drops off. As the T-share count drops off, the amount of the share of, that's the right way to say this, if you look at the same amount of HEX payout every day gets shared across fewer and fewer T-shares, so the amount goes up. See, the amount that you get in a daily payout goes up automatically that way. And then in addition to that, we have the ever increasing amount of HEX, total HEX goes up a little bit less than 2% per year at the moment. And so as that goes up, the payout also goes up, right? So you have this baseline effect of the share rate going down, or the shares going down and share rate going up, and therefore APY is going up slightly. And then on top of that, you have these penalties, and the penalties come from one or two places. One is emergency end stakes. And yes, we have emergency end stakes, but they tend to be fairly stable. And every once in a while, there's somebody who really just wants to get out, or they make a mistake or whatnot. And so you see something big and nasty. But in general, it's not like some huge number. But it does affect the payout. But the good accounting is really the one that's really nailing it right now. Because when you have stakes that have not ended and somebody good accounts them, it removes those T-shares from the pool, and the APY goes up, and also the penalties are paid out. So you've seen that happen recently with the OA stakes, the suspected OA stakes.
And so the suspected OA stakes have somebody didn't run good accounting on them, or is
Yep,
it
somebody
different?
ran good accounting on them. And there's about, if I remember the count, it was about 60,000 T-shares, 70,000 T-shares. So those stakes are still open. They're just good accounted. They're not earning any interest. They're not being penalized, but they freed up an awful lot of yield, right? And so there's that part. And then you have these other stakes that actually have penalties. The OAs didn't have penalties, but you have these other stakes that actually have penalties, and those just contribute to the payout. And so when the penalty comes out, half of it goes to the OA, half of it goes to the stakers in the form of additional payout. And then eventually that additional payout, um, you know, also drives higher T-share rate, which also drives the deflationary effect, which also drives there being a higher APY. So it's kind of interesting how it all comes together.
Are those the? I guess a good question here too would be, what are the common ways for these spikes to happen? Is it the through what you've discussed so far, but are there other things that such as emergency and stake penalties and things like that that we've seen throughout time? I guess is there a way to look for the future and be like, okay, if we see a big payout, it's because this or this happened.
You have to go check the data. And certainly somebody probably build something, or I could build something that would specifically call it out when it happens.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's really those types of things. So to see a big payout, it's really going to be a combination of penalties, those types of penalties, and just the normal growth in the system. But none of it will come as a great surprise, you know. And
Yeah.
so if for anybody who wants to do it, if you do go to Hexfire, let's say you want to go see penalized stakes, well, you can go to the I have a penalty page up, and you can go look at the penalties.
Yeah.
Um,
You want to throw that up maybe on your side so you can click around a little bit better?
yeah, sure. I'll do
I'll,
that right now.
I'll swap you out.
Yeah, I'll give you guys an idea of what I would do. What
Yeah.
my play is when I'm up here doing this. Let's see, I got it up and running. Let me share out my screen. This should be it right here. Let me know if you guys see this screen. If you can see it.
Boom.
All right. Yeah, you had to click it.
Yeah.
So this is the Hexfire site, and yeah, I'll kind of go slow with it, but I have a panel over here for a selection called Advanced Staking Data. And so if I saw, this is always going to be after the fact. And let's say I wanted to research yesterday, what had happened. I can come in and actually look at the penalized stakes and change the screen up a little bit and go see what kind of penalties might have been accrued and when, right? So we'll go look at yesterday only and just see what kind of penalties came in. So I can see all the stake IDs were 57 of them that were penalized. And I can look at what I think the penalties were according to the system, right? Starting at 706,000 from yesterday. And then just kind of go review those, and look at them. And this should capture a good amount of those penalties, if not all of them. And it's got some additional information for us about, with these emergency end stakes, etc., that type of thing.
Nice. Nice.
So this is one way to look at it. And whenever anybody's using this stuff, if you find something that doesn't show up the way you would expect it to, or you think there's an error, just pop me a note and I'll take a look at it, because I am working with these on a regular basis to kind of update them, to do different things. And so then if I wanted to see good accounted stakes that were out there and which ones were good accounted, this one's probably going to show us that 7 million one. Oops. Go the other way. Good accounting date of yesterday. You can see here's a 5.9 million penalty stake. That was for being late on good accounting, so you can see what those look like, and how they add up. This was a 63 million stake. It was a good amount of T-shares, 9.4, and so that also 9.4, okay, but 9,407 also probably accounts for some more of that drop in T-shares.
Wow.
So you can what's really cool about, of course, our system is you can really dig in and see what's going on and why it's happening.
So just to recap too, the different ways we could see the spikes in payouts. It'd be the merchant stakes. It could be good. Can you explain good accounting again? Just like why would we see that? Why it would relate to that?
Yeah, with good accounting, once you get past your 2-week, once a stake is past its end date plus 2 weeks, it starts getting penalized. So you start to see these penalties accrue. And by doing the good accounting on it, you not only release the penalties out, but it also takes the T-shares out of the pool. And so if you think about the daily inflation payout that's paid, it's split. That payout is split by T-share. So if you had one of 100 T-shares, you get 1% of it, right? Well, when one of these stakes ends that holds a T-share, it does not come out of the pool until somebody runs a function. So that one essentially makes no yield for itself, and nobody else gets the yield. It just goes away.
Gotcha.
So once somebody runs a good accounting, it takes that away, and now that 1% gets spread against everybody else.
Gotcha. So good accounting takes the T-shares out of the pool and gives so that the payouts can go up, but also make sure the stake doesn't get penalized while it's not minted again yet.
Correct. Yeah, and then it'll also distribute the penalties. So I'll give you an example. I pulled up this screen, which is this one is called unclaimed HEX. And so if you come up in this one, I have it set right now to show me all the ones that are completely burned, 100% burned, right? And I can come in here and look at the late penalty and just do a down on that so I can order it. And you see that the biggest one that's at least is 100% bled is 263,000 HEX. Okay.
Hmm.
And so it has 20 T-shares associated with it, right?
Yep.
And so just really rough, because I'm not going to do the math in my head. Payouts over 6, right? So per day per T-share. So there's 120 HEX that would be coming to this stake if this stake was open. But instead, that 120 HEX just doesn't ever get created. It just goes to nowhere. So if somebody was to go, GA or good account this stake, the 120 payout per day would now be spread against all stakers. So right now, all these that are all here, it's like 4,000, almost 4,000 T-shares worth. They're just taking up space. That yield just never gets realized anywhere.
Wow. Very interesting. Any other cases you can think of? Good accounting, the bleeding, the merchant stakes. What other would cause spikes in payouts?
Well, spike up would have to be a reduction in T-shares. So yeah, I mean that's it. I mean there's nothing else that there can be. Maybe we have some big stakes end, but those would be something we'd be seeing happening, right?
What about big stakes starting?
Well, that won't spike it, but it'll make them go the other way, right? So it could bring down the rate, the payout, and basically spread it.
let's cover that too. The other side. What could bring it down? Big, huge stakes starting. Maybe it reminds me of like maybe the Maxima stakes and stuff like that. Those starting could make it spike down, or maybe stay that way for a while. What other events could make that happen?
No other events other than staking that I'm thinking of comes to mind. Right, because you'd have to increase the number of T-shares, and we don't have a situation where anybody can create new hacks. I mean, other than through the minting, there's very limited in what you can do to affect the payout to make it go down. It's really only staking behavior.
And for the OA too, what have they done just for people who haven't been around very long for this? What have they done to show benevolence, or something around them not staking as much, or letting things bleed out, or maybe it's around good accounting? Can you go through that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and that's probably the biggest single opportunity that we might have to see payouts go down. So as you're asking that question about what else would it be, I say staking behavior. And so if the OA made a decision, the OA, the origin address and its associate daughter addresses have a lot of HEX. If it made the decision to do an awful lot of staking, then the payout would be affected, right? And it would go down. But we haven't, since Big Payday, we haven't seen very much activity at all from the OA. And to my knowledge, no new stakes and no ended stakes. So essentially, we haven't seen the OA do anything since Big Payday.
Gotcha.
I think there's one, at least this is just my observation, maybe somebody else in the chat will come up with something, but just looking at, even looking at transactions, I'm not talking about like the sacrifice related stuff or any of that thing, but having to do with HEX system, I haven't seen any activity. Like I think I have an example of one stake after Big Payday that was ended in 2021, that if it truly is OA related, it was the only transaction that I've seen.